Hey everyone, welcome back to CryptoCache. Thank you so much for joining me here. We're taking a quick look, of course, at Bitcoin. Important stuff on the back end here. There's some outliers that I think we need to make sure to pay attention to with macro liquidation levels, but also some CryptoNet ETF inflow here for a change. We saw 6 days in a row of ETF net outflow, and we have our first green day there. So we're going to talk about that and what that means for us, and just make sure we understand, kind of a well-rounded approach here. How do we approach this kind of situation leading into a weekend? Let's take a look. All right, folks, before we jump into this wonderful backend data here, I want to talk to you about something that's really important to me, and it's hitting that like button, commenting below when you watch my videos. Really appreciate that. Thank you again so much. It's crazy how low of views I get, but the click-through rating is really high. I mean, it's basically just YouTube being terrible about recommending my content, but on the same accord, the longer you watch, the better, the more you interact, the better things are for the views. So I really appreciate that. Thank you again for being just a phenomenal part of my life. You know who you are. You've been watching probably every day for the last few years. I've been, in the space for over 4.5, almost 5 years now, and it's been a wonderful experience. So thanks again for just being a great part of my life. So back in data, we're going to talk about this here because this is important. I wanted to kind of discuss this because when we look at liquidation, yesterday we saw there was a ton of liquidation to the upside with very little to the downside. The price spiked up, it pulled back again this morning. We're seeing a bit of a double bottom, but what I want to get at here is that the last 24 hours of trading volume, we're closer to that upper liquidation range. In other words, between here and 102.5, roughly 103K, there's probably a good, I haven't done the math on it, but it's somewhere in the range of 5 to 10 billion in liquidation. Now, keep in mind that number is amplified based on the amount of leverage being used. It's not technically that exact dollar amount, but it's still a lot of liquidation. Okay, and that's all closer to the upside than the downside. Not to say there isn't still some below. Of course, there's new chunks here, but this is more recent liquidation, and the local liquidation is less likely to get hit because those are some longs that just kind of entered the market in the recent past couple of hours, right? So please understand that. Furthermore, too, when it comes to overall liquidation, there's still a lot more left to the upside. While there's still a small chunk between 96 and 100,000, we'll look at that next on the heat map. It's important to recognize there's a tremendous amount more of liquidation to the upside, kind of implying that potential reversals on board or on deck, and that could very well happen. When we look here at liquidation too, we can see, of course, the same thing happening here as well for Bitcoin. Actually, why don't we refresh this? This might be slightly dated. Let's go ahead and double check. Yeah, it's better now, but it's still bad, right? We're still at a 3 to 1 ratio for shorts versus longs getting liquidated, or sorry, long versus shorts. There's three times the amount of longs versus shorts. But if you look at altcoins, a lot of altcoins are starting to zero out. In other words, there's just as many longs as shorts on Ethereum, for example. That tells us that ETH is reaching its tentative bottom at 3,200. Same thing as well with Solana. Well, actually, Solana is more synonymous with Bitcoin. And then we look at XRP, almost a lot worse than Bitcoin. All right, so ETH is one of the outliers, I guess. But the concept here is that we're not seeing a significant imbalance here where a lot of altcoins are getting hit really hard. They're actually doing fairly well in the overall sense, and that speaks to the crypto market cap, which we can talk about here. But mainly I want to touch on this here, and this isn't relevant to Ethereum. This is more so Bitcoin. And this was 2 days ago. Keep in mind, this ETF net inflow or outflow is effectively predated, or it's in the past, right? Post-dated rather. And we can see that 11/5, roughly on Wednesday, we saw a large ETF inflow for Bitcoin, and it was outflowing for about 6 business days straight. All right. So that kind of tells us that we see this little potential bottoming out period where there's more money flowing into ETFs, therefore more interest in buying that low $100,000 range. And that's usually something I like to focus on or kind of just be mindful of with trend reversals. Oftentimes you'll see an ETF net inflows occur roughly when that happens, okay? Now, it's hard to tell because it's a lagging indicator, but it is still nonetheless something to be mindful of. Now, take a look here. This is the last 1 month of basically open interest on the right. As per usual, we're seeing that $110,000 to $111,000 range is that significant amount of open interest. Okay, so if we do end up going on a run, make sure you understand and/or secure profits between now and 111,000. That's a solid resistance for us. Now, when we look at open interest here locally, we can see there's a lot in the 99 to 101K range. We talked about this yesterday, but it just kind of reinforces support at that double bottom, that lower level here for us. We can see liquidation short delta is still high, right? So still a lot of shorts in the market. They could very well get squeezed out though, of course. I sent this update here earlier, just kind of showing you that, hey, these liquidation amounts above the price, they're concerning here for a short-term rally, which is good, don't get me wrong, obviously, depending on the direction you're heading, but also just something that's kind of it's par for the course, because when we see this many shorts in the market, we have too many shorts for too long, there will inevitably be a short squeeze that happens, or they'll eventually secure profits, which is less likely. Most people are too greedy in this market. That's why market makers do exactly the opposite of what you think is logical. They secure profits, and that's why we see the market moving quickly. Okay. All that said, liquidation here from the last 7-day perspective, there's still once more a chunk between 97 and 99K. So don't get it in your head that I'm saying that we're bullish, we're going to go straight up from here. We're just seeing some early signs of reversal is all. The truth is we could very well see another candle wick down. I wouldn't be surprised or put it past the market makers. However, to clarify, on the 4-hour time frame, we can see we are at an overextended state here on TD sequential, just kind of letting us know we've been moving in the same direction for 36 hours. It's really common for price action to slow down when that happens, at least for a shorter period, before it reverses itself. Now, it's not a guarantee, of course, because you saw we had a previous night on TD sequential and the market got even greedier, right? We were supposed to bottom out that 104, 105K range. No, no, 98,000 was the next stop, right? So it's not a guarantee, but oftentimes when you see these overextended states, the price does have a tendency of wanting to reverse itself. So this is still probably very premature, but it's also kind of an early sign that letting us know that we might actually see a green weekend. And to touch on that too, just so you know, when you have red days throughout the entire week, it's really common for weekends to either go sideways or up, if you will, or see it to be green. I'm not saying it's going to be a super strong green weekend, but I do think we are more likely to see some kind of altcoin rally this weekend within small margins. Okay. All that said, we're still below both descending trends, so we're not in good shape at all. Macro structure hasn't changed, so truthfully, Bitcoin isn't looking phenomenal, right? We have to zoom into the hourly time frame to kind of see kind of where we're at here, and we're still underneath the cloud here. We're still in a descending trend. There's a lot of reasons why it's not a great call to consider a long or a short. Okay, shorting the bottom here, this feels like a double bottom. It seems like a bad idea, but also taking a long, it's inherently more risky. Okay, so that's kind of how it is. That's how the market makers they've done their job really well, because everyone's too scared to buy. And at this point, they're just waiting for volume to pile up in either direction. They're going to go ahead and hit it. All right. So as we're seeing right now, we're starting to see this overextension leading into more liquidation above the price and below, more incentive for the price to go higher on the short term. Okay. So those are my thoughts there. What are yours? Why don't you comment below? Let's take a quick look here at some altcoins next. All right, folks, let's take a quick look here at ETH, kind of see what's going on. We had a nice solid bounce off of 3,200 this morning. We talked about that being a key level based on open interest. So let's take another look here and kind of see where we're at for the backend data on Ethereum. Now, when we look at the backend data here, we always like to verify a few things. First, quick understanding here. Open interest, it works like a support in a lot of ways when it's below the price, and reverse action when it's above. So at this point, we got a pretty solid support range between 3,200 and 3,300. Okay. I emphasize the reason why I felt confident taking a long yesterday. In fact, we secured some nice profits on that. Where was it? We hit whiff was 21% on ETH, and it only filled on one exchange, by the way, too. So that's how tight the margins are right now. You got to make sure that you are watching your trades close. But what I'm bringing that up, or the reason I'm bringing that to your attention, is because we're seeing a bottom start to happen for Ethereum. Not to say it can't go any lower, but we're seeing a double bottom pattern as well as consolidation here. Bitcoin's maintaining that 99 to 101K range, and it's a good situation overall for Ethereum, in my personal opinion. I don't think we're going to go to the metaphorical moon or even 4,000 soon, but I do think short-term sideways and up makes more sense than sideways and down. But we haven't broken our descending trend lines yet. We're still not in great shape. So please, definitely take caution when you take trades, specifically even taking my trades. Make sure you're working within tighter margins right now. You can't be super greedy. I've been mentioning it all over social media just to talk about the importance of securing profits. Okay, make sure you do that. All right. Liquidation delta is still super high to the downside, right? So this coin still looks very bearish from a back end perspective. But once more, we have a lot of support in the current range. So that's emphasizing positivity, right? Taking a look here the last 3 days based on liquidation, we can see though, majority of that local liquidation has been hit that $3,200 range. We talked about that being the last remaining chunk of liquidation here for us. While not all of it was fully swept, majority of it has been. So all the more reason why we're seeing the price recover and likely to continue higher based on that simple sentiment, okay? All that said, 3,500 and 3,600, two solid areas of liquidation above the price. So I do think it's more realistic to see 35, 3,600 than it would be to see to say 3,000 to 3,100. Okay, so just kind of based on liquidation, which is why market makers move the price, in the directions they see fit, is because too many people are leveraging with too much leverage. Okay, so don't be another statistic. Lower your leverage amount, lower your position size, perhaps just to be safe, and secure profits before the price reverses on you. Always adjust your stop loss into profit as you continue to get in the green on your trades, right? So take a look here at the daily time frame. This leads me to believe here as well that we are going to see some resistance potential at 3,400. All right, that's why we secured profits at 3,370. It's just the standard previous low working as a potential new high. All right, so we just got to be mindful that could be the case. That's more of a safer play. But from a macro perspective, outside of stochastic swinging up, there's not like a lot of bullish convergences here. There's no hidden indicators that some people are going to talk about. Well, most people probably say that just because it sounds cool. There's no real such thing as a hidden indicator. I'm probably going to get a lot of flack for saying that, but the concept here remains pretty clear to me. There's nothing super amazing about the daily time frame on most coins we look at. Okay, we are right there maintaining at that 200-day SMA as well. That's right there at 3,400. So once more, short-term bullish, but I think the macro structure here is still bearish, right? So please understand, when you're trading coins like this, if you take a long, you got to know that it's inherently more risky to consider a long than it is a short in the current market state. That's just kind of where we're at, right? All that said, 4-hour time frame, there's no real bearish divergences here specifically. We've been maintaining them underneath these moving averages for some time. Money flow index is pulling back a little bit, but that's just kind of factoring in the fact that we don't have these bullish candles factored in anymore, because it only takes the last 14 candles and uses that as the equation. So all that said, stochastic's pulling back, MACD's still kind of converging. So for the most part, the 4 hours are fairly neutral. The thing that I'm mostly interested in here, and it just depends on how you look at it, of course, but hypothetically, we're in a position right now where we're seeing a bit of a double bottom. Okay, now obviously it depends on if you take candle wicks or candlesticks there, but the general structure here is the same. We're seeing this support level here at roughly 3,200, holding so far so good. Now, the more you test the support level, the more likely it is to break, right? So you got to recognize we're also in somewhat of a triangle pattern here. And this is never really a great sign, because it does kind of indicate that we could very well see the price action pull back. Okay, so there's some weird patterns you can pull out. Obviously, that's why you don't want to trade patterns alone. But generally speaking here, we're in a position where the price action should break to the upside in the near future, just based on how it's starting to form. And my thought process here is that 100,000 for Bitcoin will still hold in the overall sense. I hope I'm right about that, because obviously if I'm wrong, it's going to continue lower and altcoins are not going to do very well. But we have seen so far, Ethereum is one of those outliers, of course, some select altcoins are not overcorrecting themselves to the downside, right? Bitcoin's down 0.5%, Ethereum's break even. That's a good sign in most cases, right? So those are things to pay attention to. And that's just kind of my thoughts there on Ethereum. What are yours? Comment below. Let's take a look at Solana next. If you're looking for a new exchange or possibly just want to help support the channel, Bitunix has got you covered. We've been partnered with this exchange for over 2 years. It's been our fan favorite for our community, and the reason why is because they take really good care of you. They offer trading reward bonuses as well as a reduction in fees. Best exchange I would recommend at this point. Link down below for more information. So taking a look here at Solana, the easy way to understand it is that it's roughly in the same shape, only slightly worse. In other words, our 4-hour candlestick closure is lower than Ethereum's and or Bitcoin. So it's kind of establishing lower lows in a sense, but it's also right there at that support level of 155. So it's too early to tell, but from a bird's eye view, this doesn't look great, just based on its own structure there on the lower time frames. But we look at the last 7 days of open interest, there's not a lot really telling us that we're in great shape. We have more resistance above the price. So until we can break cleanly above 165, the local high, I wouldn't feel very comfortable taking a long position with this coin. So it's just kind of the way that it looks here so far. It's just kind of underperforming versus most alts. We can see, however, liquidation delta is super low or high to the downside, rather. That's also very bearish. And if we look at the last 3 days, there's probably more liquidation on the upside than the downside, I'm guessing, but let's double check. Yes, that is correct. 160 to 165. So hypothetically, if you do take a long, secure profits between now and 165, that feels like the 160 to 165 range is the local resistance for us. Not just open interest, but liquidation, and obviously the local high here being unbroken. So we can't really seem to get past that level. Other than that, not much else to note. Honestly, you look at the 4-hour time frame, it's roughly the same as the majority of other altcoins. And there's no like special hidden amazing things that I can try to tell you here. I mean, I wouldn't tell you that anyways, because it's usually just a fool's errand. But the whole concept here is that, you're reaching if you're thinking that Solana's bullish right now. The only caveat I would say here that is positive, and this is usually a general, benefit here, we are seeing a 9 on TD sequential. So we've been moving down for, 9 days straight. It's really common for the price action to bottom out in those ranges. So I do really feel like we are starting to reach our bottom. It's just that from a technical standpoint, everything looks truly terrible. But that's all the more reason why the prices typically pump, right? Everyone's scared to death. They don't want to trade this coin right now because it looks like it's on the edge of a cliff, which it is. But that's all the more reason why we could very well see a pump here. And if that happens, it's not people like you and I, it's market makers 101. All right, so that's kind of where we're at there for Solana. Make your own decision there, but I would just kind of be careful and cautious trading this coin. SUI, on the other hand, appears to be one of the few coins here of the ones we're going to be looking at to be actually in pretty decent shape. And what I mean by that is it's up 3% on the day when Bitcoin is down by 0.5%. It's generally a favorable sign. We're also seeing that bottoming out here where this coin was previously overextended and is still maintaining this range. That's always a good sign. We like to see that. Okay, so ultimately that's looking positive just from a bird's eye view. If we look at the last 7 days of open interest, there's quite a lot. It's all in the current range of that $2 to 190 range. So, more specifically 190 to 210. Now we have recently taken a long position with SUI. We secured some profits on that. It was like a 198 to 205, I think it was the entries, or 198 rather, 205 take profit. The reason I mention that is because 205 is that local high, that local shelf you could see here. That's pretty much causing a lot of resistance. So in that sense, until the price breaks above 205 or closes above that level, I would be careful trusting this short-term pump. Once more, SUI is an unusual coin. It has a tendency of being very emotional. It's similar to XRP in a lot of ways too, where the traders trade more emotionally than they do logically. And it's no discredit to you if you're a SUI trader. It's just it's a very sporadic coin, and oftentimes it moves based on the sentiment versus actually technical analysis in a lot of ways. So all that said, though, liquidation delta is still super high to the downside, implying either a short squeeze will happen soon or it's too early to say that we're going to have a breakout because the price action is not looking phenomenal. So anyways, all that said, we're looking at the last 7 days. We can see here that there is tons of liquidation between 211 and 220. We've talked about that previously being a significant margin. Obviously, 240 to 250 is that really big pocket there, but I think we're a long ways away from that. Okay. Now, these white lines I have on the chart are generally just some macro support levels. So our previous low, which is our current high, is 245. That's basically the resistance for us. So the price does end up traveling further up, that's going to be a rejection area for us, but potentially also a massive short squeeze there too. So we'll project cap when we get there. That's a ways away though. 240 feels like a forever ago, or down the road, however you want to put it. So 4-hour time frame. This is a good structure here in a sense, but it's also quite concerning. It really just depends on this bullish engulfing candle. So what I'm getting at here is we can see that this structure, it's generally bearish in a lot of ways, because you can see that when you have these kind of ranges, they're oftentimes bearish type of channels. So like, in other words, this is a bearish flag pattern with a price action, or sorry, bearish rectangle rather, where it works itself into a channel and then inevitably drops because it keeps retesting its low. We're not there yet, and this is just a pattern I'm simply bringing to your attention. That's not the reason to trade it, but in that sense, that's generally not good. But what is good here is this bullish engulfing candle so far, basically telling us that bulls have controlled the last 4 hours in this regard, basically letting us know that this period is better than the last. That being said, if this period is better than last and volume's increased, what do you think is going to happen? The price will go up because of the simple fact that people are starting to buy this coin. It's been bottomed out for some time, and a reversal is potentially on the horizon. Okay, so that's kind of some stuff to kind of look at there. From a structure here as well, this coin is doing better than most too. We're getting closer to 50 on the RSI. Money flow index is above the price. It's had time to normalize in this $2 range. That's a good sign. Ultimately, looking at a continuation higher. We do have a bullish type of convergence on the RSI, of course, letting us know there's more interest in buying this coin, and also the simple fact that the price action is going sideways and up. So it's a very positive sign here. 4-hour time frame looks pretty good, but there's no doubt about it. Outside the overextension on the daily time frame, there's really not a whole heck of a lot here that's amazing. Most coins are seeing a stochastic swing to the upside. That's an early sign of reversal. So you kind of compare that with all the things we looked at here so far, and SUI does have a statistical favorability of going higher. All right, there is that. But just know this coin does have a statistical favorability of being quite emotional, and it can absolutely pull back really hard if Bitcoin decides to do so as well. So just be mindful of that. I think it's still a little premature there, but hypothetically, you do take a long, a long to fill this fair value gap at 227 makes sense. I think that's a bit lofty personally. I think 220 should be a take profit target consideration, or lower, just to be on the safe side to ensure you walk away in the green. Because this is just this is not a great place to want to trade. Just some friendly advice there. All right. If you're looking for a new exchange or possibly just want to help support the channel, Bitunix has got you covered. We've been partnered with this exchange for over 2 years. It's been our fan favorite for our community, and the reason why is because they take really good care of you. They offer trading reward bonuses as well as a reduction in fees. Best exchange I would recommend at this point. Link down below for more information. Take a look here at XRP. What's going on with this bad boy? Well, XRP, very similar structure to a lot of coins, only it's consolidating in its lower range. I don't like that. This is once again just kind of the bird's eye view, and this can absolutely change if we look at everything else. But just kind of looking at here, this is very similar structure to Ethereum and Bitcoin, which aren't looking too terrible in the overall sense, but still it's a bearish type of scenario, and we need to be mindful that it's inherently more risky to consider along. All that said, 215 to 220, nice solid foundation of volume there with open interest support there. There's also open interest resistance at 227, keep that in mind. And we look here as well, liquidation delta has remained bearish. Okay, so that basically just implies that there are more people shorting this coin than taking longs in the last 5 trading days. And we look here as well, the last 3 days from a liquidation standpoint, we can see there's liquidation in both directions. So 215 as per usual, that's kind of that number we've talked about for a while. That's still at that recent local bottom, but also an area of liquidation that's still a little bit left. Having said that though, half that level has been swept. We're now halfway towards 225 to 227, and that's where the significant chunk of liquidation lies. So this does feel like we're going to go a little bit higher first before we pull back. There's also a fair value gap just above the price where the price moved down too quickly, and a previous fair value gap at 247. Don't set your sights on 247. That's too far away. We're still in a descending trend until we break that. We want to presume we're going to continue lower, but macro structure does not look great at all. 4-hour time frame is reaching an overextended state as per usual. MACD is starting to diverge, albeit quite slowly. And then, of course, stochastic swinging down, money flow index is low. There's not a lot of supporting factors here telling us we're bottomed out, minus the double bottom and, of course, the that support of open interest at 215. But there's still liquidation there as well. So when you have a mixed bag of just total trash, if you want to say it that way, the best way to describe it, that you're just not quite sure which way to go, don't trade. As simple as that, folks. I don't know why people sit there and try to convince themselves they want to take a trade. It's like this crazy, crazy thing that happens with crypto traders. They're probably addictive personalities in the first place. Thank God I'm not that kind of person, so I can kind of see clearly in the situations. But when I look at this here, outside of just say the double bottom, there's really no reason to take a trade. But I do personally, if I were just to kind of go with my feelings, which I will never trade on that, I feel like XRP is reaching its bottom. 215, 220 makes perfect sense to be its local bottom. And that's based on the premise that I feel like Bitcoin's probably going to stay in the 99 to 101K range and potentially progress higher slowly throughout the weekend. So those are my thoughts. What are yours? Comment below. Let me know what you think in here. Once again, thanks so much for being an amazing part of my life. Always liking the videos. Do not forget to take advantage of this exclusive offer here through Bitunix. All the information is available down below. They've been a great community for our community, rather, a great trading exchange. So be sure to check them out. They are awesome. Links down below for that if you have any questions. Feel free to reach out as well. We'll look forward to seeing the next one. Have a great rest of your day. Take care.